Right under there. So I've been on the boat 4 months and you've asked lots of questions and I've sort of given some answers in comments, but I thought I'd make a video to clarify some of the bits. So firstly, thank you all for all of your questions. I'm just going to run through them and let's see what we come up with. So there's 3 questions that I can kind of group together because they're kind of related, even though they may not seem related. So I have a question from Chip, from Sean and from Eltrim, which is, from Chip, it's what interests me. From Sean is what nature is around. And from Eltrim is what artistic hobbies do I have? Myself, I am super interested in nature, like wildlife, landscape, the way things have become, the way the world has become what it's become, is kind of quite a big interest of mine. So like the history in canals does actually kind of like speak to me a little, but also that there is so much nature along the canal system that people don't necessarily spot. You may spot quite a few herons, but there's a lot of really small birds, there's fish, there can be otters, there can be badgers, there can be loads of stuff that you don't necessarily realise is there unless you spend a bit of time. I am looking at doing a video along those lines. I need to work out a time when myself and a wildlife photographer, Drew, is available at the same time because he wants to kind of do a video along those lines as well. And it'd be really cool to do a video together. And I've known him for quite some time, so it would be fantastic to just spend a bit of time with a friend going along the canal, moor up somewhere, see what we can capture. So watch this space for that video. Question from Brian: what is the origin of the name of the channel? Being put simply, it's a play on words. It's a bit like cut loose, but cut sluice being canal terms. So cut is a nickname for the canal. The reason being, rivers are natural waterways, whereas canals were cut out of the land. The nickname being the cut. Sluice coming from sluice gates, which is a way of managing water with different gates to stop or increase the flow of water. Put together, cut sluice, cut loose. There you go. That's where it comes from. Question from Per was, what inspired my move onto a narrowboat? So how do I answer that question? It's a kind of balancing act of a few different sort of situations that came together. Number one is I got divorced about 2 years ago, and since then, once all the financial separation is done, it was a case of I can't afford to go straight into a mortgage because mortgage rates went through the roof at the same time as house prices, but also so did renting. A 2-bedroom house to rent around here is £1,200 a month, which is bonkers. And I thought, do I rent for a while I work out exactly what I'm going to do? What's probably my best course of action? I spent 6 months kind of looking through different ways of living. I thought about van life, but realised that it's a little bit too small. I do have 2 children to consider in this. So it was a case of, how do I not waste all of my money in rent whilst also having enough space for the children to come and sleep over when it's my turn to have them? But at the same time, how do I sort of slow myself down a bit, because I was running at 1,000,000 miles an hour all the time, and actually outside of being on the boat I still kind of do. I'm self-employed, so I work a lot. The kids have football training and I help out with the football clubs to try and ensure that training goes well, and I want to see the kids play football as much as I can. So outside of living on the boat, I actually have quite a fast pace of life, and I needed to make sure I didn't have that at home. So I thought about a narrowboat for about 6 months before I even looked at costs, and then had a chat with my parents to just make sure I wasn't being an absolute crazy head, and it kind of just made sense. So the short answer is divorce and necessity, I guess, but not just necessity, but it was it was a thought out necessity, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense at all, if I'm honest, but I spent a good chunk of time really thinking about what's the best way to do this. And I don't know whether I'll live on a boat for the rest of my life or whether I'll live on the boat for the next few years and then reassess. I mean, I'll always reassess. I'll never say I'm going to do this forever and full stop. I'm giving up on any other idea. I'll always be thinking about what's the next step and those kind of things. But I do really like the idea of slowing down and kind of just taking in what's around you. It's allowed me, living here has allowed me to actually kind of step back and go, what do I want? What's the next thing to aim for in my life? Where am I walking towards? What am I doing? And because I'm not held to a landlord that tells me, oh, I'm going to put your rent up in 3 months' time. Yes, I do have mooring fees, and yes, they might increase, but it's not anywhere near on the same scale, so it won't impact my life at the same scale, if that makes sense. So that's what inspired me. So that's a really good question. Thank you, Per. Right, what have we got next? Eltrim, another question from Eltrim. How did your expectations of living on a narrowboat compare to the reality of living on one? I'll be brutally honest, it's easier than I thought it would be. I did get a really massive kick in the teeth in the very first night, but since then, everything's got a little bit easier as I've learned a little bit more. And I actually feel at home. So the one big thing that I don't think I was ready for was the fact that even in a marina in the winter, it is there's not many people. So I think as it gets warmer, that's going to change dramatically, and it already has. I've made friends with the people on the boat next door and 2 boats up, and then there's we've got people behind that are absolutely sound that are going to be moving on to kind of cruise through the spring and the summer, etc. A couple more people further down that are really, really nice people, which has actually helped. But the very first, I moved in November, and it was very quiet. So I've made a video that was 5 reasons not that narrowboat's not for everyone. One of them was about solitude. I wasn't ready for just how quiet it was going to be. I think that is really just because of the time of year and the fact that I'm in a quiet marina in a bit that is actually like you come in the gate, you come all the way around, and then you have to walk along. There's not many people that have to walk past my boat to get to their boat. So say if I lived on the other side of the marina, just like sort of where the entrance is, I'd see a lot more people and interact with people a bit more. So I guess it is all situational, but I wasn't ready for that. Other than that, it's almost exactly how I expected it to be. But I think I've become accustomed to it a lot easier than I thought I would. So good question again. What's your next one? What else have we got? Right. Okay. Got one from Ginger58. What's the dating scene like on a narrowboat? Brutally honest, I have no idea. You'd have to ask the fella 2 boats up. He tends to have a chin wag to everyone, shall we say, and he's single, I'm not. So, yeah, I have no idea, is the brutal honest on that one. A question from Cameron. Can we get a poop cleaning vlog? I did say yes, we could, but I've done a video on toilets. I don't think I'll do just a vlog purely on a toilet, but if you really, really want one, then yeah, I can do an in-depth video about that. That just sounds horrific. Question from Jono. Does the boat have a name? Yes, the boat is called Red October. And hilariously, Red October was a submarine. Doesn't bode well, does it? What I'm saying is it's a retired submarine anyway, so retired submarines don't like swim underwater. They kind of get, I don't know, what do they do with retired submarines? I don't say they sink them. Anyway, so yeah, it's called Red October. Let's move on. Question from Brian. What, if anything, would you change on your boat? Very good question. I would, number one, is I need to install 240 volt hookup. So I need to do that and install some sockets. I do have the parts for that, but I am taking advice, and I will be doing that with a friend who's trained electronically and I'm not. So theoretically, I know how to do it. I don't want to make a mistake and then have to change things or put myself at risk of any kind of electric shock or anything like that, because it's, you know, safety first. Number two, I want to install a way to plug my guitar directly into the sound system. Just realised that I've missed one of my hobbies, and that's music. I absolutely love music. Like, I've been playing in bands for, well, since I was 17. I play guitar and sing. I will drop a link to the bands in the description, so if you want to book them, you can. But yeah, I've been playing music for ages, and to me, it like playing live into like in a pub, when you just get people bouncing around, enjoying themselves, putting a smile on people's faces is just like, it's just an energy like there isn't any other. You can't replace that. The way music does it is different to the way comedy does it, is different to the way just a kind gesture does it. Music gives me so much joy, which is strange because I don't actually listen to much music on the boat. And I've sort of realised that. What I do is I sort of cleanse my mind of thoughts when I'm on the boat. And I might play, but I don't listen to music much on the boat. Whereas I do listen to music in the car, and I'll go and watch a band if I can. If I've got a free moment to go and watch a band, I will go to watch music, because it just gives you a completely different feeling. Anyway, back to what would I do on the boat? What would I change? I'd love to have an extra 10 feet on the boat, but I don't want to pay the fees for an extra 10 feet on the boat. So, like, because what I'd love to do is install a log burner, and I could in a 40-foot boat, I could, but it means that I'd have to rip out where the children sleep, and that's not an option for me. So I would love to have a log burner, but for practical reasons and cost reasons, I'm not going to install one. What else would I change? At some point, I think I would like to install a cratch. So at the moment, I have a cover over the front door to kind of make sure that front is not drafty. But I think what I'd like to do is have a cratch so I could use that front area a little bit more. That's probably something I'd like to do. I will also at some point redo the windows. There's some bits where I've got some moisture coming in, and as we all know, moisture is moisture and it will rot the wood. So I'm going to be doing some work on the windows at some point. Around the frames, I will cut out the bits that I think, like an area that will work for all the windows, replace some bits, and then probably paint all the wooden bits, yeah, all the wooden bits here white, or just off white. I'll keep the wood on the top. I really love the wood on the top, but I'd like to brighten it up a little bit and change the curtains, change the kind of fabrics. That'd be a job to do. I quite like green. I really do like the colour green, but they need a bit of a revamp. Question from Jono: Do you have those painting things on your doors? No, I don't have paintings, but I do have the little shield badge things from different places that the boat has been before with its previous owner. And I'm going to keep them because it's the history of the boat, it's the boat story. I've always thought with history, you should never delete anything. Some people probably should delete their internet history, but that aside, you shouldn't delete history because it's something to learn and something to understand about how the world has got to the way it has been. And obviously the world's never perfect. You should understand things so that you know what you should and shouldn't do in the future, if that makes sense. And because of my beliefs in that, I think keeping some of the history of the boat alive is quite important. So yeah, I've got those things. Next question, let's have a look. Question from Brian. Cool, I've got loads of questions from Brian. Question from Brian: Are you planning on cruising the entire network? I would love to. I would absolutely love to. At the moment, that sort of thing is not possible. I have 2 children to think about, and you know, they're at least 5 years away from thinking about leaving home, thinking about not being dependent on parents. So yeah, that's not something I can think about now, but at some point in the future, yes. Will I go cruising this summer? Yes, but I can't do the entire network in a few weeks. So yes, is the short answer. Yes, I would love to. The long answer is not just yet. How many locks have you been through? Is from Jono. I don't know. I don't know. More than 20. How do I don't know. I don't know. And a related question: Have you lost a lock key yet? No, I have not. I'm sure I will. I'm sure I'll leave one behind at some point, but no, none have been collateral damage to a journey as of yet. So, another question from Brian: How does the coffee contraption work? Right. It's called a percolator. So my particular one's made by a company called Good Morn. Or is it Good Morn? No, God Morn. My apologies, God Morn. Because it's the morning of the gods. But essentially, it's a 3-part piece. Oh, I'm going to have to clean this out, aren't I? Yep, hang on. Let's see, clean. Okay. Coffee granules. Okie doke. So, percolator, however people want to call it. I don't really know what the original pronunciation is, but it's essentially stovetop coffee. So you have water, you put water in this bit, yeah? You then put coffee in this bit, which is a filter. That filter goes in here, and you can see this essentially is a place for steam to come through. That's what it is. You then have the top, which the water comes up into, or say the coffee, when it's boiled, comes into. There's like little holes in this bit, and there's a further filter here. This goes on top, and essentially You slowly, very slowly boil the water. So really low gas. The water then starts to evaporate and become steam. The steam then rises up through the little tube there, comes then to the coffee in this bit. So the coffee in that bit there, it boils or steams through, then gets to this bit, and then it steams up. This bit's got little holes either side, and you essentially, when it boils and it comes out the sides and drops back down because it gets to the top here, and it cools down a little bit in the air and becomes coffee again rather than steam coffee, or however. I don't like science. Anyway, then you just pour it out. I can only imagine that face is all about the strange noise I just created. But it's banging. Oh. The very last question is from Brian. It was the last one that was asked, but also I actually really like the question. And the question is, I'm going to read it exactly how he's written it. What do you consider your most satisfying achievement so far in your life afloat? The thing I'm most proud of is the very first night. My first night, I got the boat up here. It took 6 hours, took 6 to 7 hours to get the boat from where it was moored before to here. And then got the boat in. Once I'd done all the paperwork in the office, I sat down, had something to eat, had a couple of beers, and I switched the heating on. Nothing happened. It was -4. Now, quite easily, I could have rang a taxi, rang a friend, stopped at a parent's house, whatever. I'm not miles away from my friends and family. I could quite easily have called anyone and stopped at their house, but I didn't. I just jumped in my sleeping bag, decided, do you know what? I'm just going to ride it out and I'll see what the worst it possibly could be, because it was -4. It doesn't get much colder in Britain. So the worst thing that could happen is I'm stuck somewhere, -4, no heating. That's the worst that could happen, really. And I did it. I got through the night. I woke up in the morning and actually, do you know what? In the sleeping bag, I was all right, because I've thankfully got a half-decent sleeping bag. Got out of the sleeping bag and my God, it was freezing cold. It was awful. But I realised that no matter what, life throws at me in this adventure, I'm going to get through. As long as I've got my health, as long as I've got my happiness, then I'll get through. So it's quite important for myself, actually, to have done that, I think. I've fixed the heating a couple of times, and do you know what? It was first time. Do you know what it was? It was a fuse, and I fixed it. With done. Since then, other things have happened, and oh my God, that's another video that's in the making. But even though other things were bigger in terms of took more effort, took more everything, that particular moment took a decision and just belief. If I didn't make that decision that night, I would have sold the boat and I'd be doing something completely different now. And I'm really glad I didn't. So thank you very much for that question, Brian. That's really good. And that's it for today. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll be back with either a video about heating or a video about making my boat into a guitar amp? Who knows? See you in the next one.